how does emotions affect learning? And we know through neuroscience that if a young person is dysregulated or they're really distressed, no learning can happen.
You're listening to Around the School Table, hosted by me, Steve Davis, and proudly powered by Xuno Suite. We'll be bringing together the many voices shaping primary and secondary education across Australia, from principals and teachers to education thought leaders and system innovators. Whether you're in the classroom, the staff room, or the boardroom, this is your podcast to be informed, inspired, and connected. Life Skills Go is a digital wellbeing platform developed by Life Skills Group, designed for the K-12 education sector in Australia and New Zealand. Its primary function is to measure, track and support the social, emotional and physical learning skills of students with a particular focus on student wellbeing and a readiness to learn. Its founder, Nikki Bonus, is with us. She joins us on Around the School Table from Sydney. Nikki, welcome.
Thank you, Steve, for having me.
Nikki, I've heard you describe Life Skills Go as student-facing, technology for good, and data for action. Can you unpack what that means, especially in the context of emotional intelligence and why starting young matters?
Yeah, really great question, Stephen. Thank you. I think you just eloquently put what we do. You know, the drive to be able to embed and the science and the evidence around having preventative practices and starting really young is really, really important. And when we look at the Cassell model of social emotional learning, it talks about self-awareness being the first skill, the first skill. And we know today through evidence and through research and through science that beginning to give our young people the tools to be able to identify their emotions is critical, really critical. And when we think about if they can identify, communicate, and manage their emotions, we also know through trauma-informed best practice that the smallest, most consistent thing we do every day is really important. So student-facing, the platform actually teaches emotional literacy, self-regulation, and the young people are getting used to, and I'm sure, Steve, if I said to you, how are you? You'd go, yeah, good, great, feeling really good. It breaks down, how do we begin to really embed, first and foremost, normalising emotions, removing the good, the bad, the negative, the ones that we like, and recognising that emotions come and go. They're not fact, they're just data. And if we can have our young people beginning to feel confident and also learn that anger's okay, frustration's okay. It's okay to feel it, but it's not okay to throw something or to act out. So the premise around the young people bringing their emotional awareness, building self-awareness and self-regulation, happening every day without, touching into teaching and learning time has been really, really important. It also gives the schools an opportunity to see how their young people are turning up every morning. How are they arriving at school? The data that then... Oh, sorry, Steve, I was just going to keep going. You can just jump in there.
No, you keep going because you're embodying something I'm wrestling with at the moment, is trying to incorporate this little saying that the way you do a thing is the way you do everything. And This is rippling all the way through what you're talking about. In fact, and I'm also envious that it's students getting this. I think many of us adults would love access.
Oh, Steve, I mean, this is one of the things that we hear from schools is there's this big divide around, why are emotions so important? And, this is not being rude in any way, but we didn't have that at school, Steve. It wasn't important. It was all about academic success. And when we look at the measurement that schools take in traditional wellbeing of a young person, it's all got to do with attendance, behaviour, teachers' observation, and it's always an anonymous surveys, maybe done randomly throughout the year. But we're never actually including student voice. We're never actually looking at what is their point of need. And I'm sure, Steve, I won't throw you under the bus, but maybe I will. Well-being's not like academics. We don't just, bank in good curriculum and off we go and we learn heaps about well-being and we learn emotional literacy and bang, you're now enlightened, Stephen. Nothing is going to go wrong in your life. Well-being, what we want to do is ensure that no child falls through the gaps and that we catch them before they fall and that we can begin to be preventative in really seeing how our young people are.
I actually think that brings up, there was something, you created National Check-In Week.
Mm-hmm.
It was born from a need during COVID, but it's now a proactive tool in your kit.
Mm.
What did National Check-In Week actually reveal about the emotional state of students and what lasting changes came from that?
Yeah, beautiful. Well, the National Check-In Week 2025 starts on the 20th of May. So we have a lead up to it happening right now. What it did reveal, first and foremost, is the majority of our students or the students within schools that teachers thought were okay were actually masking their emotions.
Wow.
Mm.
Wow. So this is
Mm-hmm.
this is well, it's like a proper mirror. It's not one of these fancy mirrors that tries to make you look good. This shows you warts and all.
Absolutely. And I think what the other thing that we really saw through National Check-In Week was a real need nationally for the education of the neuroscience, for the psychologists to have a voice, for us to really, us adults, to deeply understand. You mentioned right at the beginning, we have a measurement that's included now across a student and a cohort and a whole school that is teacher facing around readiness to learn. And what we get asked a lot is, you know, how does emotions affect learning? And we know through neuroscience that if a young person is dysregulated or they're really distressed, no learning can happen.
I just want to
Being
circle.
able, yeah, sorry, no, you go.
No, look, we're both champing at the bit on this. I want to circle back to what you touched on earlier with that the traditional method of tracking how we're going, attendance, academic performance. But the way you're talking about it, emotional well-being, is actually a metric that we should be
Mhm.
aware of now, albeit at the moment it's an invisible metric. Despite the fact that in our society today, and there is a thing called a present-day bias, where we always think we're doing better than the past has always done, but it's still pretty much invisible. You've got this technology. How do you surface this data? How does Life Skills Go bring it so it's actionable?
Oh, I can't give you away all our trade secrets, but what I can do is the majority of our school communities in the education sector, they will use the emotion check-in tool as the young people are arriving at school. So the young people will either anonymously or in front of the whole class walk up and share how they're feeling. And there's a couple of questions. It's completely customizable. It's age appropriate. There's a lot that happens because we've worked across so many different communities, and even into our learning support units and schools for specific purposes. But it takes no teaching and learning time. It's like marking the roll. So the teacher doesn't need to do anything. There's no extra work for the teacher. And then on the back of it, it's drawing on a huge amount of data rules and data sets, and it's triangulating data and it's lifting up a metric. If we look at, say, just for this morning, if a class was doing it, it will let the teacher know the percentage of students that are ready to learn, the students that might be in a heightened state of emotion. And it'll also lift up things like our brains aren't built to store information. So it'll lift up trends and metrics and things that might be of observation that a teacher might not necessarily see, and allow the teacher in that moment to have information that will impact to be preventative in behaviour management, to see their students, to strengthen their relationships with their young people. And that rolls right up through the school, right up to executive level, to the principal, and then it'll work longitudinally as well. That was a very, very brief overview of what it does.
Oh, but it also reminds me, I remember hearing I think it was a neuroscientist talking many years ago about the brain's key function is just to keep us alive. It just wants us to survive, and it's got to deploy resources where they're needed. When you're drowning or suffering anxiety, you can't enjoy poetry
Mhm.
or Shakespeare, and hence be present for learning because it's got other stuff on its mind. That seems to be what you're trying to ascertain, is who's in the state where they've got that sorted and managed so there is capacity to engage in the learning process. Is that right?
Yes, and yes, and I think that that's a really good point. Is first and foremost, you're absolutely spot on. I could have, and I'll give you an example. I could have a little guy, little Timmy turns up and he registers that he's angry. Now, it's not for the teachers to run at every emotion every single morning, but it might be. And this is the misconception that we often have, that we think that we have to fix it or we have to change it. The sheer, and you're talking about neuroscience, the sheer act of going over, and I'll use you, Steve. So, Steve, you've arrived at school and you're in my class, and a little thing pops up, and it's like, Steve's angry. And this is unusual because Steve normally turns up happy. So I'm like, oh, that's a bit unusual. So I might get the class on track and I might pop over and I might say, hey, Steve, I just noticed that you're a little bit angry this morning. And you look at me with these big, beautiful eyes, and you're like, she noticed, she saw. So, what we're doing, if we come back to attachments theory, is can we truly see our young people? Can we see them? Can we build trust with them? If we do, they feel safe, they feel secure, and then they learn to self soothe. So, that's one part of it, and that relationship building. And particularly in education, we talk about a sense of belonging. You've just been seen. The other part that I'd like to debunk is I don't need to solve it. I don't need to fix it. And I might say to you, hey, Steve, what's going on? And you might go, we ran out of Vegemite this morning and my mum made me have peanut butter. And I go, oh, buddy, it's a bit rough. You're right. And you go, yeah. And you're smiling. The validation of being seen and being, rather than, hey, Steve, don't be angry, or someone not going, knowing what's going on. Now, the reason I bring up a really light example is because you are in a heightened state of emotion. No learning can happen. Emotions are about what's important to you, Steve. So I've not only begun to build trust, I've seen you, I've validated you, you feel happy, and now you're ready to learn.
Wow. That, yes, look, the hairs in the back of my neck went up as you made that very pertinent observation. To be seen, to be noticed as a being of
Mhm,
value is the
mhm.
fundamental thing from which we can then grow it. It's the inverse, if you like, of that banishment from the group and how that can really be a horrible and punishing experience. And this is turning that around and say, hey, you're here, you're valued, you're
I
you.
care about you. Yeah, I care. And one more thing to that, and I think that's really important, is we're also here to begin to normalize the emotions. And I keep saying this in a society that says, anger's not good, or this is, worry's not good, and it's a bad emotion. We have educators, and I always say this, we have the privilege every day to be able to change that narrative. We also have the ability, and as you were saying, and I'll come back to your little person that you were talking about, in a state of anxiety or worry, they're coming in, everything, their pupils are dilated, they're really nervous, they can't hear anything, they can't see anything, they can't take anything in. It might be about also helping them understand that worry is actually a normal part of life. You've got an exam today. It's okay, buddy. It's okay to worry. Also, anger might look different in your home than it might in our classroom. So we have the opportunity to create a sense of safety. We're not there to suppress the emotions. We're there to allow a safe space for those emotions to move through and to move on and to redefine our story with them and how we feel.
Wow, that's such an important thing. I just going to ask a question without notice. The Inside Out movies, the animated movies where you've got the different emotions
Yeah.
represented, kosher not kosher, helpful, not helpful for our
I love
teachers
them,
listening?
love them,
Yeah.
love them, love them. I think what I'd love to do is I'd like to have that movie, and then I'd like to have someone like Dr. Mark Williams sitting side by side talking about what's happening in the brain. So the young people have agency around, "Oh, that's what's happening in my body when I'm having an emotion. That's what's happening in my brain when I'm having an emotion." Like that would be my ultimate goal of success for educators, families, and for young people.
Good morning.
Selamat pagi.
早安
Shubhrohat.
Kalimera
Magandang umaga.
좋은 아침이에요.
Want to make sure every parent feels connected and informed, no matter what language they speak? Communication just got easier. With Xuno's multi-language feature, you can now connect with parents in over 130 languages, automatically translated, instantly understood, whether it's reminders, updates, or celebrations. Families receive your message in their preferred language, with no extra steps from you, no confusion, just clear communication. Every time. Try it today to build stronger school-to-home partnerships, inclusive, effortless, and effective.
Now, for teachers listening, they're dealing with their students at school. Some of them might also be parents, particularly of teenagers, etc. I've got 2 teenage daughters. Prior to this interview, I heard you say that one of the best times to talk to your own teenager is when you're in the car because you're shoulder to shoulder, you're not eyeballing each other. Can you elaborate on that? What's going on there?
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. I think there's two different skills I'll often use. I'm also a mother of teenagers too, so this is also tried and tested, but this is also research back. So this isn't just Nikki Bonus sitting here and doing this this podcast. There is a lot going on, as we know, for our teenagers, and there's a lot going on in their brain, and I won't go too deeply into that. But there is this ability. You'll have 2 different. And this is very generalizing, so please bear with me. I know one of my teenagers, if he is really disheveled and he's really shut down and he's really just not communicating, one of the tools I've found is I make up stories about we have to go somewhere or we have to do something or he has to help me, and I pop him in the car and we drive and we drive and we drive until he starts speaking. And he will always start speaking because it's not intimidating. I'm not questioning him. I might throw in a couple of questions, really lighthearted, but he does want to connect with me, but he doesn't want the intensity of the eyeball to eyeball. I have another beautiful young teenager in my house where it's all about doing sport together. So my husband will often go out and play basketball or, do physical activity. And while they're doing it, that little one, well, not little anymore at all, will begin to start talking. And I think those tools as parents for us, where do they respond? Where do they feel like they've got space to begin to start sharing what's going on? I'd also add into that the ability to just, again, listen to them without trying to fix them. I know. That's a tough one.
Yes, well, that's the let them theory to some degree, which is tough. The other thing that just sprung to my mind as you were talking about this is the 4-part TV series called Adolescence. That the last episode, about half of it, is the dad, the mum and the daughter in the car. We're just watching them and they aren't looking each other in the eye. And there's some pretty intense things that get talked about and discussed. And there's that chemistry that you're talking about writ large, that dynamic, because they are younger. And for us to be eyeballing them, there's a spotlight and that must feel awkward. And here we get to chip in, but we're not shriveling under a grown-up's spotlight.
I think there's also, for all of us, can we sit in the discomfort of hearing things that we don't know nor understand? And our youth, Steve, I love your face. It's very hard as parents. It's very hard as teachers sometimes. Like if we can sit in a non-judgmental, curious, please don't think I'm enlightened around this area. Like one of the things I've enjoyed is not enjoyed that. I'm going to redact that. One of the things that I have found through shepherding my young people through teenage years is the less judgmental, the more curious, the more I can ask inquiring questions. Just keep asking them inquiring questions rather than trying to fix it, rather than trying to judge it. I'm creating a space where they will come, they will open it. And it also comes down to me of how willing am I to sit in really difficult conversations for myself and my family? And am I willing to hear what's really going on for them? Because it's painful.
Yeah. If you ask me, I'd say that's what I try to embody, but I can't remember the author, but I read the book talking about the learner mindset and the judger mindset and how we should be. And you're talking about the learner mindset, to be open to that curiosity, the yes-and-ness, but it's so hard for some of us. Really focusing back to an executive in a school who might still be seeing emotions as soft or secondary to academic outcomes, what data would you show to them? What would you put in front of them to say, look at this again, please?
And I think that's a really good question again. First and foremost, I'd say you're allowed to not believe in this. This is new for you. There's no, convincing. In their weekly executive meetings, when they have their standard wellbeing review, I'd say, look at your wellbeing reports across either your stage or your cohort. And I'd like you to have a look at what's been surfaced this week across your school. Within that, I would say 99.9% of executives turn around and say, we had absolutely no idea that was happening for a young person. And I'll give you a story here. One that was just being spoken about in a school conference yesterday. One of the principals said that a teacher had said, I am a little bit concerned about, and I'm making this young person's name up, Amy. She just seems really off. And the data was sort of showing her, but nothing was popping up. This young person, there was no behavioural incidents. She was still turning up to school. She was still like a whole lot of things. And in the wellbeing review, in their executive review, it revealed the colour coding against attendance and behaviour. But this young person was in the red on Mondays and Fridays for 3 weeks in a row. And this was against all their other metrics. And they began to dig into it, and there was something happening at home, and mum was very, very sick, and something was happening on the weekend. So Mondays weren't going great, Fridays weren't going great. They would never have known, and they were never able to put in support for this young person because this young person didn't have the ability to be able to communicate what was going on at that point in their time. And if we think about how we'd normally begin to identify that, it might be a really long time. And that's just a very, it's a kind of a slightly light story that I can kind of share. But those patterns, those metrics really get underneath the hood of, if we have a look at emotions, it's okay for us to feel a little worried. It's okay for us to feel a little bit anxious. But it's also about finding out the situation that we're feeling anxious, or the situation that we're feeling worried, or the habits or the trends or what's really going on. So we can then, and you said at the beginning, we can then take action, put in support and begin to work together.
It colours in the black and white of an attendance rating, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
You've said before that your magic wand wish would be to see this real-time wellbeing data used properly. So, what do you mean by that? What's standing in the way? Is it policy? Is it technology? Is it culture?
Oh, wow, Steve.
I thought I'd finish with a light question.
Yeah, nothing like kicking off the morning with that one, is it? I'm really watching my mouth here. I'd actually say all of the above. So it's really interesting because for us to be able to roll out, we have large clusters, we have large areas that work, the evidence that's being done on it, the research that's being done on it. I think there is a cultural change of education. There is a support that we need to ensure that we are taking everybody on the journey. And that even comes down to our young people around, why are we doing this? Why is this important? It's not a big step It's not a big change. It can happen in a week or two. And then it comes down to, prioritising it. And I often say we have more data, more research. We know there's a problem. Are we willing to take a risk and do something different? Are we willing to be bold and not wait for the next policy change that might be 3 years away? Because that's 3 years of every single student's life. What can we do today? What can we do today? And I think that, for me, my magic wand is, how much longer are we going to wait? And how many more lives could we support in a preventative space? Not only our students, not only our teachers, not only our schools, but also our families too.
And they're all big years between K and 12.
Mm-hmm.
Nikki Bonus from Life Skills Group, thank you for joining us around the school table.
Thank you, Steve.